So thank you all for joining us here. We're going to talk about confident communication for
Yeah.
career growth, how to speak with confidence and unlock new career opportunities. Okay, so Marta, you're a career and a confidence coach. So I'd love to know, how'd you get started in this? How'd you get started in this work, and why is this so important to you?
Oh, thank you so much, Ty, for asking. So basically, I think confidence was always like in my life as something I was passionate myself about because I also always wanted to grow my own confidence. And then moving forward with my career, I also realized how many doors confidence really open. And I'm sure you know the best how like communication, the way we show up ourselves, present, the way we build relationships, but even like show up on meetings and with having this confidence, this kind of charisma, but also combined with this deeper self-belief, literally like changes what opportunities we attract. So that's something I've been building for myself and learning more and more in corporate world and as an entrepreneur and seeing all my clients because I was starting more as career coach, purely focusing just like helping people get their jobs. And many clients came to me who actually were starting also their own businesses. And the common thing was always they needed confidence. Like the strategy was important, but like they really needed this confidence to go for their dreams. And yeah, and I'm happy to support them a similar way as I did it for myself, basically. And what about yourself? What gets you into communication coaching, and how do you think it like impacted your career path?
Yeah, definitely. So my communication journey actually started when I was a little kid, and I grew up on a very small farm near a very small town in Western Canada. So the nearest town to our farm only had 800 people. And so I was a very shy, awkward kid. I was kind of isolated on the farm, and I just loved avoiding people as much as possible. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And my older sister, Alana, was the exact opposite of me. So she was very bubbly, very outgoing, very extroverted. So whenever somebody would ask me a question, my sister would jump in and say, "Let me tell you what Ty thinks."
Oh,
So that's fine when you're younger, right? Your sister's speaking for you. You're kind of avoiding people. You're very nervous and anxious. But then once you get older, you grow up, graduate college, you enter the professional world. The only job I could get out of school was selling life insurance. So imagine now you're so anxious or nervous to ask someone how their day was, but then now your whole ability to make money depends on having tough conversations. So conversations about like death and disease and disability, unexpected, really terrible things. So as you can imagine, I did not do very well at this. I remember there's one particular meeting where we're going around the room, everyone's giving an update for the week, team meeting. My boss asks for my update. I just kind of black out. I'm so anxious and nervous. And I say something like, "Oh, I'm going, doing some stuff and working on some things and some stuff. And yeah." And he looked me right in the eyes and he said, "Ty, I don't know what that means." So I was so embarrassed, super
oh,
embarrassed. I went home that day, opened up my laptop, and I type in, "Can I still be successful without having to talk?" So I didn't really
oh.
get many results from that. So I do another Google search that says how to speak so people actually understand you. So I did get some results from that. And so I spent hours just reading all the articles, practicing. So I go to the same meeting the next week. I give my update this time. I give it the way that I had practiced and planned based on what I had read. My boss looked at me again, but this time he said, "Good job." Now, that was the
Mm.
first time I had heard good job from anyone actually in years. So in that moment, I realized this is actually something that I can get better at. Communication
Right.
is something that I can improve because it's a skill just like anything else. So since then, I've spent basically a decade obsessing over communication. I've worked with hundreds of clients. I've written multiple best-selling books on communication. But the part that I'm most proud of is that my sister no longer has to speak for me. So that's how I became a communication coach. That's how I got into it. That's the journey, communication for me. And our theme here today is confident communication. So Marta, why do you think this is such a big deal? Why is this such a game changer if you're trying to grow in your career?
I think it's literally your story perfectly answers this question as well, Ty. And first of all, just want to acknowledge that it's really, really impressive and like inspiring because that's always the best teacher, I think, when you went through this journey of building your own confidence. So then, like, you know how to really teach others because you basically know what they are struggling with exactly and how it feels and what are the best techniques to overcome. So in my case, I actually was always this bubbly personality. Like I was always very outgoing. I was like from like external world, definitely probably described as this confident person from literally almost always. But the little hack in here was that like for me, I wasn't always really accepted for being this way. And I literally had to make this decision in my life many years ago if I just go to this like safe path and just change and more adjust to like colder culture of the country when I've been growing up and just yeah fit to the norm of society of being more quiet and like colder approach and not all the time smiling or laughing or whatever or just feeling like all right like let's be authentic self and let's actually don't have friends for some periods of my life or not have this external validation in the way, but on the price of being myself truly. And this is actually leading me to the answer for your question because my whole career, like my biggest, let's say, successes in at least the way I view them and things which were are most meaningful, most important for me were always coming from being authentic self. So I feel I would never ever get there if I agree for what's been expected from me in my school, from my friends, from teachers. My family didn't really care about me being like normal and being me, but I think people around definitely yes. And this is this superpower. And I think if I did fit in, if I did give up on being my real self, I would first of all never feel aligned with me, never feel fulfilled as a person with who I really am, like with my soul, being deep about it. But also, I wouldn't be able to empower now others as a coach for their career, for their confidence, for public speaking, and now like myself being on stage and speaking about being confident if I wouldn't take this leap in a way to show up as myself always. So that's why I think it's the most important because the best career is the one that like is aligned with our true selves, with our values. Of course, we can be more professional. Some environments requires it that we need to have certain approach, certain way we communicate, even the way we dress up and stuff like that. But in general, if it's against ourselves, you will never be able to reach like the full potential in my opinion because it will always be on the surface of like acting as something and thinking like it's being professional while it's actually just playing it small and not reaching this what could be possible in career. So that's
Mm.
what I think. How would you relate to this point? What is like your experience telling you?
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about being your authentic self and being your genuine self and not holding back that way because it's something that I think a lot of people struggle with and they think, okay, what does that actually look like for me? So I'm actually gonna ask a follow-up question because I love how passionately you spoke about that. How do you think somebody leans in to being their confident self instead of feeling like they maybe need to hold back because they're at work or they're in a professional setting? How would somebody really lean into that, from your opinion?
Hmm. This is a good question. And I think it's really tricky in the way because it is true as well that some working environments will require not being 100% ourselves. And sometimes, if employers, especially like in corporate settings, see this 100% full potential, I think like they even feel threatened sometimes because it's so confident and they feel like, oh, well, like if you want to come to my place in a few years. So I still think it has to be balanced in the corporate setting. But in general, Yeah, it might be tricky because I feel like it depends on company culture, on the job, but being authentic self is combining professionalism with not acting what really your values are, like how you communicate. It also very often is visible in any type of like additional projects or initiatives. So to me, in my career, it was always visible if we had some kind of offsite or event, and I had opportunity to be on the stage even for a few minutes and just like share my energy and message. And then like people came back to me always and been like, "Oh, we were so inspired by it," and I didn't even realize it made such an impact, but I learned through those experiences that kind of volunteering to opportunities that are aligned with our passions and with our energy is the best way, because it again has to be combined with professionalism. It's not about, maybe it's called, or company culture, and then being like, we also have to match the energy, right? I'm sure this is something you can speak more about, of like when, I don't know, sometimes someone is extremely quiet and speak like very low voice and someone's like shouting, that might probably like don't make this dynamic the best in conversation. So I think we kind of have to answer with our energy, but also not answer in the way that it's like fake and completely like this person can feel, oh, they're just trying to make me like them or something. And it kind of also leads me to the next question, Tay. I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think are the biggest mistakes in communication in like work settings, but in general, when you like expressing yourself, you want to be confident, but then it's this like error.
That's a good question. One of the biggest mistakes I actually notice when I work with a lot of people is first and foremost, it's a lack of awareness. Okay.
Mm,
So if you don't know what you're doing wrong, you can't really fix it. Okay. Now I'll work with people that are all different ages in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s. And a lot of these people have gone their whole lives without really knowing how they're coming across to other people
mm,
or how other people perceive them when they're speaking. So I'll give you an example. I was working with a guy named Dustin. So Dustin's a pretty successful guy. He's got a good job, he's making good money, but he was stuck in the same role for a number of years. And he just kind of felt like, maybe people listening can relate to this too. You just kind of feel like you get up, but you don't really feel like going to work. You feel like it's kind of the same stuff day after day. You've been in this job for too long. You're just like, I'd rather stay in bed. I'd rather not get up. And so you kind of feel a little bit lost and a little bit stuck. And so Dustin had been passed up for, a couple higher roles that he had been applying for, a couple promotions. And so he thought his communication might be a part of that. So he came to me
mm,
and he said, I think I can be a better communicator. I think I'm pretty good, but I could do better. And I know I use filler words sometimes. I use some ums and some uhs, so I'd really like to get rid of those too. So this is something that I do with all my clients. We'll have a conversation, I'll analyze them, but then also get them to record themselves speaking. And so I'm watching Dustin's recordings, I notice a few things. First is that his points aren't very clear. I'm like, what is this guy trying to say? Second is that he's a bit all over the place. When somebody starts talking about something, but then they kind of jump to something else, then sometimes they loop back, but sometimes they don't. So I noticed that. And it was also hard to listen to him for long periods of time because he kind of a boring sounding voice, to be honest. So I nicely explained all these things to him. Also told him the things he was doing well because, I'm a good guy. And he said, I had no idea that I was doing these things. So this is a guy that had been in his career for him, it would have been like 20 years. He had been in the professional world. About 40 years old, started when he was 20, but he had no idea he did these things when he spoke. So
mm.
for him, the cool thing with communication is that everything's fixable, everything's learnable. You can actually improve anything that you want to. So now that he knew, and now that we knew he needed to work on these things, we put together a plan. Here's how you work on these things. Here's how you improve. Here's how to practice. Here's how you get better. Just follow these steps. And he follows the steps. He fixes these things. And then within a few months, not only are people starting to treat him differently at work, then 3 months later, he actually gets accepted for the higher level role. that he applies for. So none of
Wow.
that would have been possible if he didn't have any awareness. If he didn't come to me, or he could have maybe figured this out himself on his own as well. What am I doing wrong? And then once you know what you're doing wrong, you can then put together a plan in terms of how to be better. But that's one of the biggest mistakes I see is a lack of awareness, because the problem is a lot of people will also ask their coworkers, team members, even their bosses, and people don't really want to give honest feedback for a couple reasons. Number one, they're like, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. It's 2025. People might be sensitive. I'd rather just not say anything because I don't have to deal with this. And the second reason, maybe they're not experts. So they're like, oh, it sounds okay to me. I wasn't really listening that closely. They might not actually know or be able to articulate what a person could be doing better. And third, it takes some level of time and investment if you tell someone they need to get better at something. So what that means is a lot of people think if I give feedback, they're going to keep coming to me trying to get feedback or trying to get help. So they just avoid it altogether. This is why if you've ever worked in a company, maybe you speak in a meeting or you give a presentation, you ask one of your friends or your coworkers, "Hey, how was that?" And they're like, "Oh, it was great. You did awesome." But then that's all they say, right? So then you can go through that and just get that type of feedback for years. Like, yeah, you're pretty good. No worries. Now you have no awareness. You don't know what you're doing wrong. So this is why having somebody to help you with this is so crucial. A lot of people won't be honest with you. A lot of your friends, sorry to say, usually won't be honest with you. They don't want to hurt your feelings. So having somebody to say, here's what you're doing wrong, here's how to fix it, is super valuable. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I think people are missing. Most people that come to me don't even realize what they should be doing better. So that's something that really stands out. And in that case, that helped him get a promotion within a few months. Now let's talk about a promotion. But I know that, Marta, you're also an expert when it comes to the job search. You do a lot of work with people in this. You've helped a lot of people find those jobs. You have all these different ways that I don't even know about in terms of finding jobs that maybe aren't even listed. But in terms of the job search process in general, how can somebody be more confident or communicate more confidently as they're going through that process?
Right, that's very interesting question because I think there are kind of two parts for it because confidence is obviously combined with communication, but also very often there is also this part of even before communication, part of confidence connected like self-belief and really being ready for this next career step because I think what works very poorly and is kind of mistake with job search is when candidates start to look for this new job and start this networking, putting themselves even online, building visibility, but actually they don't believe that it's possible or that they are good enough for this dream role. And then it's this like crush and it can be like even in their energy they will just show up differently. They will have maybe subconscious some limiting beliefs that they will like put less effort in it or yeah, like many of those things that can basically make it not really successful. But also then the way we communicate with others, especially for those jobs, as you mentioned, like hidden on the market. So jobs that are not listed, or also those can be jobs that are like employer don't even know yet they will open this role, but then they meet the right candidate, and if they have budget they might be like, all right, we actually can open this role because this is the person that can contribute to this company, basically make them more money or sell them more money as a new employee. So they want to hire this person, or it was like longer term plan to open this role. But since there is already perfect candidate and proves everything with data, how they can help, how they can contribute, then why not? Let's go for it. And when reaching out to new people, new connections, or even people from the past, it can get really messy. I think, and I'm sure you can relate to this part, like when people reach out for advice or for help in a bad way, and it immediately sends this tone when we receive this kind of message, it's like, oh, it doesn't feel like helping in a way, not in a selfish way, but it's just like very bad approach. I remember someone once asked me after corporate, for example, they also considered quitting corporate. And I have many clients, so I help do the same, not as a like business coach, but more from the side of career and confidence to build your personal branding and again, like confidence to really go their own. So I would be very, very happy to do it. Like I feel I have many insights, but I approach it more the way in a way of like how I do survive after quitting corporate. Like, is it working? And I felt they wanted to hear that it's too hard, or it's like, no, it's just not worth it to quit, just to validate, to not take risks. So we just have to very be aware for the job search to type or speak if it's already like a verbal communication, the way we would like to be approached and the way we would like to feel receiving this kind of message. I think it's similar when we do the conversation about them rather than about ask. And instead of asking for any kind of favor, we just focus on bringing value and really connecting with this person, building relationship. So it doesn't feel transactional, but also it stops being transactional because genuine like relationships, even in business, shouldn't be about just waiting for this next thing. It's like if both like employer and candidate have similar goal, then it's win-win for both anyway. It's not that someone just makes a favor. It would be, I think, easier in this world if getting a job would be just, oh yeah, I will just give you a favor and give you a job and find a budget for, I don't know, 100K dollars per year to pay you. Like this is not how favor really goes. It's because it's business transaction and it should be approached this way. Um, so yeah, so that's something definitely what I think about job search. It is very important. And how do you feel, Ty, from communication side? What would you pay the most attention of articulating yourself the right way when kind of similar as you said with this client of yours, when someone is ready for new career progress, for new opportunities, how would you help them prepare for this next step from point of view of communication?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have to think about every touch point of communication that you'd be having with the people that have influence in terms of you moving forward. So moving up, getting a promotion, getting a new job, whatever it might be. So whether that's written communication, the emails that you're sending, verbal, what are you actually saying to them when you see them? And then body language. So how do you look? How do you present yourself? What's your body position? What are all these nonverbal cues you're doing if you're on video? So I'll give you a little quick thing for each category. The first, if we're talking about written communication, one of the most popular things that I teach in terms of writing, it's called priming. So priming is basically certain words will prime people to think or feel a certain way. Now, there's a ton of studies on this. For example, if somebody reads the words like fast and speedy, they'll walk more quickly right after. If they read the words honest, they're more likely to tell the truth after. If they read words like impatient or aggressive, they're more likely to be kind of a jerk right after. So, for example, if you're writing a message, whether it's an email or a LinkedIn message to somebody that could influence your career in a positive way, be very mindful of the words that you're using. So, for example, if you take a while to get back to somebody, you wouldn't say, sorry, I'm late responding, because you're priming them to feel sorry and you're priming them to feel late. So you're sorry and late are the words you're priming with. So think of any words that have a negative connotation, then how can we flip them to the positive way? So that could be, thanks for your patience on this. Thanks for your understanding, right? We're priming now with words like thanks and understanding or thanks and patience. You can also think about words like can't or don't or won't. So if you say, oh, I can't meet this day, instead, why don't you say, I can meet this day? So think of like the positive flip of any of these things because you want people to associate you with positive words, with action words, with solutions, not with negative words, not with sorry, not with problems. So think about the words that you're using and be very intentional with that as you're writing these communications going back and forth. The second thing, if we're talking about something you could do in this process verbally, this is where recording yourself again is great, so you can hear how you sound. Maybe you're even just sending a voice message to them on LinkedIn or something like that. Think about as you're listening to it back, do you sound confident? Do you sound like a person that's sure of yourself that you could do this job? So we listen for things like filler words. Are you speaking too fast? Do you sound like you're just trying to get everything out of the way? You're just trying to get all the words out. Do you sound like you don't really care and you're just talking like this and you're excited for the job and I'm going to be a great asset, right? So listen back and think, okay, if this was me, would I want to hire this person? So again, this goes back to the awareness. Most people don't know what they're doing wrong or even how their own voice sounds. So that's one thing you can do is record yourself, sound more confident, use more volume, pause, take your time, use emphasis. Those are all great things you can do just to sound more confident. And our third bucket, which is our body language, there's a lot of studies actually on first impressions when it comes to things like job interviews or how people view you as you're progressing in your career. So some studies, it's pretty varied, and you might know what the exact number is here. But I've heard everywhere from people will make a decision about the first impression, what they think of you within like 1/4 of a second. It's like a quarter of a
Mm.
second, just like that, based on how you look. Then also there's studies that show it's like 7 seconds. Some will say it takes a minute and a half or 10 minutes for somebody to decide whether to hire you. So I don't know exactly what that is, but what we do know is that the way that you present yourself non-verbally really matters because people make an impression a lot of times before you start talking. So really simply, Marta and I both have great body language on our call right now. But if we were kind of like slouching or leaning back, or if we were too far away, or a lot of times people will be too close and they'll be like this, or they'll be doing things like this where they're, touching their face, or maybe they're fidgeting. So just simply having intention with how you're showing up non-verbally. So strong posture, just sit up straight, try to be still. You can use hand gestures. That's awesome. But try not to fidget, try not to slouch, try not to lean forward too much. Just imagine if you were in person with someone, what could you see, right? You could see, kind of chest up. You'd probably be sitting up straight. Try to just replicate that. That's going to make people feel more comfortable. They're going to see you as more confident. And when you do each of these things, if you focus on your words, if you focus on your voice and you focus on your body language, even just little upgrades with that can completely transform how people think of you. So if you focus on that, as well as obviously you're good at your job, which I would think everyone here is, then you're going to be amazed at how your career can skyrocket and the opportunities you can get.
Mm. This is brilliant, Ty. I love it. And I feel like, yeah, we see it a lot, or those people who do like when they are speaking in like professional settings. I mean, I think even on private, right? Like if you're going to meet your friend and their body language is very like chaotic or like I don't know, they are just like, yeah, touching themselves or like, I don't know, it's not a vibe. Like basically, it's even the same when you go for a date and someone's body language is like, you're like, obviously you would feel
Yeah,
uncomfortable,
they're too
right?
into it.
Like it's not this like etap yet. So I feel like with job interviews, it's in a way the same. Obviously, it's professional setting, but we have to remember at the end of the day, it's like every other interaction, we want to make others feel comfortable and build trust by our posture and like the way we communicate verbally and non-verbally rather than like close up or show them like oh yeah we don't care or like even look somewhere else or even on those job interviews or any other professional conversations that are online like we are right now and you can see obviously when someone is looking there are AI tools that can fix it but in general like normally we do and I had this experience sometimes I've been on some like even networking call not necessarily like with my clients they're mostly like listening I didn't experience anything else but if it was like more networking but still business connected call and I remember someone when they were speaking, they were like all the time looking because obviously they can't do both things when they're speaking. But when the first second I started to speak, I saw they immediately like, doing some like other multitasking in the background. And I immediately like lost my focus. I didn't know what to say because the only thing I wanted to say was like, excuse me, like if you're busy, we can just like hang off because I don't do it this way. So yeah, this body language is powerful for everything. It just builds trust and makes other feel, yeah, like hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I know that we're all kind of guilty of multitasking on calls sometimes.
Yeah.
I know everyone on here has probably done it. You're in a meeting and you're like, why am I even in this meeting? Do I have to be here? Then you're just kind of doing your emails. And so I get it. Sometimes you do that. But really think about when you're in a situation where people can see you, and especially if people who can influence you moving up in your career are there, think about how you're being seen. So think about where your eyes going. Try to maybe just be a little more sneaky about answering your emails, make it a bit less obvious, maybe. But just having more intention with that, recognize that people can see you. So whether it's the interview should be really locked in, but even whether it's a networking call like that, this is how people will see you, and that's your reputation, which really matters, whether it's your own company or just in the industry in general. So definitely something to keep in mind. If you're on camera, people can see you. Remember that they can see you.
That's the good point. No, yeah, 100%. Because of course, if it's work and sometimes you even have to multitask, it's not about, of course, just non-stop looking at the person or yourself. You can also do it on Zoom calls, right? You can just look at your window, how you look. It's like the funny thing. But no, but in general, just to like keep this balance, I think it's extremely important. So yeah, so we still build like give this respect and build trust in relationship, yeah, in this professional setting.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are little things that make a big difference.
100% agree. And what do you think, Ty, when someone is very nervous? Like, what would be your best tips to, yeah, for communication, like verbally, but also body language? That happens a lot that someone is nervous and they maybe have more of problem with eye contact or any kind of move, they just freeze out, or the opposite. I feel like I'm always very expressive. Maybe you would say I'm too much. I don't know. But yeah, I would love to hear about like kind of beating stress and managing, especially if it's any more like difficult or very important conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure we all get nervous at some point in maybe a big presentation, or maybe it's just a meeting that has people that we think are important or intimidating. Or maybe it's groups of people. All these things are quite common. And so pretty much everyone I work with has some level of nerves in some situations. There's a whole list of different things that I work on with people to improve their nerves and to reduce that stress and anxiety that they feel. But I'll give you two, I'd say the most popular ones that I'll teach and some of the easiest ones you can start implementing. So the first would be, I call this, think of it like a shift in mindset. So the first is called practice, not performance. Practice, not performance. So what this means is that a lot of our nerves typically come from us seeing that particular situation as something where we really need to do well. We got to speak perfectly. We're worried about saying the wrong thing. We want to make sure that we sound smart. And the reason is that we're putting all this pressure on ourselves because we think it's like a performance. We have to do something. We're trying to get a result. But that adds so much pressure and stress. So a shift that's worked really well for me and tons of my clients is thinking about everything as practice. So if you're going to this meeting and you think, okay, I'm just going to go practice speaking in meetings. So it's not about the results, not about how I speak. As long as I go and say what I want to say, I'm practicing, and that's all that matters. Now, the cool
Mhm.
thing about this is that when you're less worried about the results, you actually get better results. Because when you're thinking about, okay, I need to go and do an amazing job, you're nervous about all the pressure, you're probably going to speak worse. right? Your mind races, you don't think as clearly, it's harder to articulate your thoughts, you don't remember things as well. But when you're thinking about it as practice, you're actually going to speak more clearly, think more clearly, speak more confidently because you're going to be more relaxed. Okay, so if you're less worried about results, you're going to get better results because that allows you to speak in a more calm, clear, confident state. So think about anything that you have to do as practice, whether it's a presentation, you're just going to practice presentations. This isn't the be all and end all of your career. You're just going to practice presentations. If it's a meeting, big group meeting, maybe there's a lot of executives in there that are intimidating. You're just going to practice speaking in front of those people. Difficult conversation, you're just going to go practice difficult conversations. So for some people, this makes a huge difference. One of my clients, we always track levels of stress and levels of confidence. Okay. So for this particular gentleman, his name is Stuart. He had a 9 out of 10 level of stress anytime he had group video calls. Now, this is a pretty established guy, but he was so stressed, you'd never know it, super anxious. So he had about a 9 out of 10 level of stress. And just by thinking through how he's just practicing, that dropped to a 5 out of 10 just
Mm.
by implementing this. And five's pretty manageable. Nine's completely throwing you off. Five's pretty manageable. That's the first thing you can do is think about everything as practice instead of a performance. Second thing is think about your state of mind. Okay, so there's the state of mind, which is really how you're thinking and feeling in a moment. If you're in a positive, calm state, you're going to speak better. If you're in a negative stress state, you're going to speak worse. So I teach a really short little practice called SBVS. S, the very first S, stands for straight, and that just means sit up straight. We talked about body language. There's a big connection between your emotional state and the position that your body's in. If you Google sad person, you'll see this. You'll see a bunch of people like hunched up, crunched forward. If you Google happy person, you'll see a bunch of people that are open, expansive, totally different positions. So it shows the connection between body language and how you feel. So the first thing is sit up straight. Second is breathe. There's a particular type of breath called the physiological sigh, which is a double inhale through the nose, single exhale through the mouth. So you can YouTube physiological sigh if you want to see the exact cadence there. It's pretty easy to do. You only need 2 of those breaths to shift your state. So that's backed by a ton of research now. That B is breathe. V is visualize. So just take a couple moments visualizing that situation going well, or you could visualize something that brings you joy. It could be your kids or your pets, or it could be a vacation, anything like that that changes your state. So the V is visualize, and the last S is smile. Now, the research shows even if you have to a little bit force a smile at first, you still get all the feel-good chemicals released in your brain. So the smile is kind of like the cherry at the top. So if you take 30 seconds before this meeting that you're nervous for, if you have 5 minutes, great. But if you only had 30 seconds, this would still work. You sit up straight, you do your breaths, you visualize things going well, and you smile. You can go to the bathroom to do this if you need privacy. That will make a huge difference in how you feel, which will then allow you to speak at your best, no matter what type of situation you're in. Now, this is going back to the stress. I had another client that started at an 8 out of 10 stress anytime she had to speak with executives or present. And it dropped it down to a 4 when she started doing this after a couple of weeks of using this
Wow.
regularly. So when you think about how much of a difference in stress just feeling better about your speaking can make, it's actually going to make your days at work a lot more enjoyable. Imagine not having to feel nervous before meetings. Imagine not having to feel so anxious about a presentation or not feel confident around certain people. So changing that's going to make a big, 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 big difference. So the first thing is practice, not performance. Second thing is changing your state of mind with SBVS. Those are 2 things
Oh.
that work really well.
I love it. I love it also, Ty, that you said like this more of like practice way than like focusing on performance as well. I think I also saw it on one of your posts and I was like, that's the spot on because very often people tend to not from this like with this expertise, of course, as you have. I feel incorporate, I heard it a lot when someone was stressed and people will be like, prepare more, prepare, just, make sure you know everything, you remember everything. And then whenever I had some kind of presentation, I actually perform, if I know the topic, of course, like the best with kind of spontaneous environment. Otherwise, I look like I'm like reading some script even without reading it. You know what I mean? When it's very like scenario, but in this not real way that it doesn't feel authentic for the audience. And whenever I heard this advice, that people would say it to those who are more stressed by presenting or public speaking, or just even speaking up on meetings. And I was like, it doesn't feel right, because if they push themselves to the limit of practice nonstop, and it won't make a good speaker overnight just because they will nonstop practice. But tell me if I'm wrong, maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, it's really that part I find kind of depends on the person in terms of should you prepare more or be more spontaneous. Some people are awesome, just kind of like speaking from the heart, speaking from the soul. Of course, it depends on the topic. Other people
Yeah.
need that preparation, but 100%, if you're just trying to like memorize a script and just say the script word for word, that's always a terrible idea, whether you're planning what to say for a meeting or a presentation or a speech. Because imagine if you have your script, right? You mess up one word when you're trying to say it, you're going to be like, where the heck am I now? Right? Versus just kind of measurizing more of a structure, more of an outline is going to be much more useful for you. So even if you're thinking about like job interview questions, you're thinking about big presentation you have to give. If you're trying to do it word for word, terrible idea. You're going to make it way harder on yourself. So that plus course practicing enough, but having that practice mindset, yeah, it's going to be a big game changer. Now, I want to actually talk to you about networking, Marta, because I know you're kind of the queen of networking. I always see so much good content from you about this. Now, a lot of being confident in advancing in your career, getting exponential career growth instead of just maybe like tiny little jump ups at a time, to really see some huge jumps. I know you've helped people through networking get some of those opportunities that they probably wouldn't have gotten unless they were networking in this particular way. So for you, what are some tips just generally? What should we be doing when networking when we want to advance in our careers?
Right. Yeah, I love this question. Definitely. Networking is a massive part of the strategy, the way I help my clients. And indeed, there are many success stories that they landed jobs in like big companies without necessarily applying. So, like Uber or Marsh, and they literally just started networking. And here is the important part: networking doesn't only mean LinkedIn, it also means offline connections. So people, like your friends, ex-colleagues, maybe family, or anyone who you can know in real life, but also who you can get to know. I met very randomly one CEO of some real estate, very fancy office in Starbucks in Warsaw, and I felt like I'm in selling sunsets live because that was such like unexpected situation, and I feel like exchanging contacts with people who do such an interesting things in real life is way more powerful, because our first impression live, when we feel confident, definitely brings the best qualities, and this connection is way more stronger and they remember us way more. But coming back to my clients, so I told them to think about also those offline connections beside LinkedIn and really list who they know, especially who they know from industries, from companies that are interesting for them. So it really makes sense to reach out and ask for potential opportunities. Here it depends on how close the connection is. If it's very good friend, of course, just go ahead and shoot. Like if I were working still at Amazon and someone of my really good friend would be like, Marta, I actually would love to work at Amazon. Could you help me like tell me if you can refer me or someone can refer me, since I was a recruiter, so I couldn't refer anyone really. I would definitely do it. But then, of course, as a recruiter, I had hundreds of requests like that, and I just wouldn't be able to manage my time to be able to help everyone. So if this is not direct connection, as a very good friend, it's important to really build this great connection and trust. And coming back to what I mentioned very early in our conversation today, build this relationship more about building interest about them. So ask questions, how they enjoy working there, what's the most interesting project, what's the most exciting, what they like, what they don't like. Of course, not in the fake way that they know it's just this, you can feel sometimes when it's this small talk before asking for a big help. We want to avoid doing it this way. If that's the way, then just like shoot straightforward. Otherwise, it will just like destroy the trust and it will look fake, in my personal opinion. And then if it comes to networking online, of course, come the big part of all the personal branding online. If it's LinkedIn, we have to make sure to optimize profile, put this professional picture, banner description, literally optimize all the keywords, like relevant experiences and skills for the role that we will be applying, and then really look for professionals, like decision makers from companies they want to join. And again, make this approach very personalized, quite about them, but of course this is very professional setting, so it's fine to also show this interest that potentially they are just interested in working there as well, rather than make it another way around, and then they might not even have time to catch up for this networking call or coffee chat online to speak about those opportunities, because they won't even know that this person is looking for those new opportunities. But there is a lot of this feeling in networking to really see like what is the seniority level. We can even see online communication on LinkedIn. If you come to mine or your profile, for example, you can see how we communicate. Is it more like chilled way and like emoji and like more casual language, more like fun way, or is it more very corporate language, very like colder communication, and then kind of adjust this messaging to this person? Then I would add all the tips you said if it comes to communication, like written communication, the words to use and to avoid. This was definitely brilliant part. And yeah, and remember to also not build your confidence based on this networking, because there will be many people who will just not answer or goes or not be really nice. I can give my personal example to like motivate anyone from our audience if they would be like going through some similar experiences when networking and going for further career growth in corporate or even as entrepreneurs. So basically, when I was sure I want to go fully into coaching, I spoke in my corporate world with someone who've been in this role, and I was super excited. Like it was one of the first people I wanted to speak about it. And they kind of told me it's impossible for me. They kind of had the approach of like, no, like you won't make it. It's super difficult. It takes ages. And I really don't know what was it. If just like they for some reason wanted to make them the only person in the world who does this job, and they didn't see that there is more people to serve and they need our support, and like kind of the more coaches the better. I would look from this perspective, but obviously everyone has their opinions. So if I listen to this person, I would never be where I am today. I would literally just shut down and be like, okay, they told me it's impossible, or I don't know, they didn't see my potential maybe. But I was like, okay, it's impossible. She said so, but she's done it. I will do it too. And here we are. And career development, again, in entrepreneurship and in corporate, is all about this resilience and not building our value based on those experiences. That's something we really have to avoid. And I know it's easy to say, hard to do, but even being aware of it, it's already helpful. So we kind of put it in our subconscious mind that no, it's not personal. It might bring some negative like feelings or not very comfortable emotions, but that's part of life, part of process. But then we need to remember to like move forward and advocate for ourselves. Yeah, I hope that answers question because it was kind of bigger answer.
Yeah, that's no, that's great. There's a lot of golden nuggets in there, so I appreciate that. I'm even thinking about sending messages over the years and just so many people not responding. So I really like that you brought that up because certainly a person could be like, okay, I need to network, I need to do this more, I need to reach out. But I imagine it's pretty easy to get discouraged thinking that everyone's going to respond, and there's just no way that everyone's going to respond. Not everyone's going to give you the conversation maybe that you want to have. So I think that's a really, really useful perspective because if you expect, okay, only a few people will respond and I'll be happy with that, or maybe no matter what happens, as long as I'm doing the actions, that's probably a perspective that would allow people to keep going and then ultimately get that dream job that they want versus if they're like, I'm just not good at this networking thing. I sent 10 messages, nobody responded. Then they're probably maybe never gonna do what it takes to keep getting to where they want to be. Is that something that you see?
100%. And I think it is tough and it requires kind of mental preparation because we are not kind of set in life to get those rejections. But in the way, it really is part of the process, it is part of success. And it again applies for both like our professional career in corporate, but even with own business, like there will be so many different conversations and so many different type of networking, maybe to collaborate with someone, maybe to learn from something, maybe with clients and kind of prospects for services. And with taking it very personally, it might be really hard to move forward and achieve those goals. Well, if it's just a number, as you said, in the way of, okay, 10 messages, they didn't go through, let's maybe send 10 more. Of course, if you send like 400 and it didn't work out, maybe it's something about the strategy, maybe it's something about changing little tweaks here and there in those messages themselves. But if it's about 10 messages, that's really not a lot to give up.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a good perspective to have because I know when I first started sending messages on LinkedIn, I thought everyone hated me. But it turns out that I just didn't send enough. I sent like five and didn't get responses, and I was like, no one likes me. But then I realized I'd only sent five. And I spoke to one of my friends at the time. They're like, what are you talking about? Send 500. They sent so much more. And I was like, oh, no, this is fine. There are people that are responding. I'm,
Yeah.
I have conversations here and not everyone is ignoring me. So this is good. So very helpful for anyone that might think it only takes a little bit of that to get what you want. Sometimes it takes a lot of
Mhm.
messaging and that sort of thing to get what you want. But just having the perspective, I'm going to keep going until it happens. I think that's really useful. So, Martin, I'd love to know, we've talked about a lot of good things here today. If somebody wants help with advancing in their career, they want to, okay, I want to take networking to another level. I want to take my job search to another level, or maybe I want confidence to go after that dream job or quit my job and start a business. How do they work with you? What would you say?
Oh, right. Yeah. So that's very simple. Basically, they can, and that's the best way, the most like common I use right now. It's my 3 month program. We basically work one-to-one coaching. We go through all like personalized goals and clarity on those goals because sometimes there is a need for change and for building confidence for it, but it's not necessarily very clear from the beginning what this change will be. So then we get together to what is this new career goal exactly to really reach this full potential. That's like my favorite phase because I feel career should be all about, yeah, just getting the career that brings together all our unique strengths and skills and experiences, just like what's the best for us to do and through our work help others in corporate settings or entrepreneurship. And yeah, and get the way to get there is basically just to DM me on LinkedIn or send me an email. There's also a link on my profile on LinkedIn to download my free ebook, to schedule a call. There are like many resources, but the process is very simple. So sending me message is definitely enough, and then like I get it from there. What about yourself and getting help about communication and all the public speaking skills?
Absolutely. Thank you. If you want to dive deeper into anything related to communication, so if you're looking to speak more confidently at work, you want to very clearly and concisely articulate your ideas. You want to absolutely rock it with your presentations, all with the goal of being more confident, speaking with more influence, growing your career, growing in your business, whatever you're looking to do. So I do primarily one-on-one coaching programs as well. So they're 3 to 4 months. And that's where we're really diving deep into what are you doing with your voice, your words, and your body language to really make sure you're optimizing everything so that you come across like that really confident, influential leader that can get any opportunity that they want, can grow in their career. Instead of chasing after opportunities, opportunities are coming to you. So we also
Mm.
dive into the confidence, like we talked about, reducing nerves and stress in the programs. And so that's called the Elite Communication Coaching Program. Same as Marta, I'm big on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. So a message on LinkedIn is probably your best bet. Instagram as well, if that's your preferred platform, you can definitely send me a message on there. But yeah, if you have any questions about anything related to coaching or just communication in general, reach out in there and I'd love to chat.
Amazing. How exciting, Ty. I'm also opening this communication, not communication, but confidence community. So if anyone would love to, yeah, just get more confidence before taking this next step, it's also very easy to join, but the same is just a DM. So that's amazing, Ty. I'm glad that you're helping your clients this wonderful way through your programs, and yeah, it's super important. And I feel like we don't even talk enough in general about how the way we communicate can change career and probably even this confidence in personal life and relationships basically as well. Like I think it's everything so have impact everywhere.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm sure that your clients notice as they build their confidence in general, not only does that impact the way that they show up in their career and growing in that way professionally, but also in their personal life too. If you feel that confidence getting out of bed and you're going to maybe an event or you're starting your day and you know you have XYZ to do, but showing up more confidently, knowing that, hey, if somebody asks me a tough question, I have the skills to articulate myself extremely well. If somebody puts me on the spot in a moment in a group, I know that I'm prepared because I've done the training, I've learned from Marta, I've learned from Ty to speak in a way that I'm very proud of, being confident, not being so stressed and anxious. So I think in both of our work, people are really not only learning these things for professional, but there's so many nice side effects, positive side effects into the personal life and other aspects, relationships, social life, personal, family, friends, partners, whatever it might be. So yeah, I think this is really a beautiful thing that applies to not just career, but other aspects of life.
Yeah, 100%. I think when this is made, like life just gets easier in every other area.
Absolutely. Okay, so we can, if anyone actually wants to ask a question in the chat, I can stick around for a little bit longer. Marta, do you have a few moments to stick around if we get any questions?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. So if anyone wants to ask a question in the chat, or if you want to hop on video and ask a question for either of us as well, feel free. Reading through some of the chat here. Dominique says, thanks for the reminder. It can be really challenging to do outreach. Absolutely. It can certainly be a mental battle sometimes to be consistent with reaching out to people, especially on LinkedIn, because you always wonder, did they even see the message? You don't always know. So yeah, totally agree. Thanks, Dominique, for that. Rick says, thank you for the advice. You have a good day. Appreciate you coming, Rick. You have a good day as well. Alex, thanks for your time and insights. Thanks for coming, Alex. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Ralph, great event. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you, Ralph. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening to us. So if anyone wants to chime in with a question, feel free. Otherwise, just want to say thank you all for joining. This was awesome. Marta, thank you for all of your insights. I learned a
Thank
lot from you today,
you.
so I'm glad that this was recorded because I'm going to be going back and reviewing some of the stuff you said. I'm going to be upping my networking game for sure. That's one
Yeah.
thing. And just overall, I really appreciate the way that you show up. Wanted to recognize you for you showing up on, so whether it's social media, or in your personal life, or the calls that we've done from time to time. You're always just bringing so much energy, so much value. You're always very generous in the things that you're willing to share. So I just wanted to recognize you for that. I really appreciate you taking the time with me here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Ty. That means a lot. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And likewise, I love that you're always super professional, obviously, with your communication and the way you show up. And you always bring these good energy and all of the like knowledge. And I'm also learning every single time so much from you about communication and confidence, because confidence is all something we build every single day. It's not just like once built and once done deal. It's something we constantly have to like develop and boost. So I'm always happy to hear all of those tips. And yeah, that's been amazing to have conversation. And I'm happy we also brought up this topic of networking and consistency, because I think for every one of us, it's super important, and we just need to remember to keep this game up and yeah, just connect with people even from our industry, even when we don't need anything. That's kind of, I think, how we connected as well, actually.
That's right. I believe it would have been an outreach from you that caused this to happen, actually, initially when we connected last year. And then now today we're doing this beautiful session together. So there can be many
Yeah.
benefits to networking. Dominique has a
Ex-
question. Can you both share one of the most important mindset learnings that helped you both get to where you currently are? So what's a
Hmm.
what's a mindset learning, Marta, that helped you get to where you currently are?
All right, love this question. And I don't know if that's obvious for all of this very like we kind of went very focused into business, but for me, the best mindset is literally kind of faith and like believing in myself in my journey, but at the same time, literally washing myself for success. So I would every day in the morning start with like rising my energy going into all the visualization, manifesting, meditation, all of those things, and then constantly like speak to myself those things. I would even do mirror work and just look deep in my eyes and speak to myself affirmations. I truly believe in them. And then all of those things are coming reality. So like it just works. Like I think if we think something is possible, it just is possible. And at the same time, we can change our identity by just the way we believe we want it to be. And then we start show up as this version of ourselves. It's like our highest selves. That's even why I call my community Become Yourself 2.0, because this is this version of ourselves. It's like higher that we look up to and like, oh, what would this best version of Marta, how would she react? Would she like speak what her is? Would she be authentic, or would she just stay silent in this moment? Like there are so many different approaches, but I think constantly every single day working on this mindset and on this literally identity, this is my biggest advice. And frankly honest, I think it's even way more work than doing my actual work because it's just like takes a lot. And especially, we have different days, different moments. So sometimes it feels like, all right, maybe let's go back to this old identity. Let's maybe just forget about it. And I'm like, no, 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 we go here again. And then it just starts to work and bring new opportunity. I see I show up myself and better every single day for me. I speak about it a lot in my podcast, my YouTube channel, TikTok as well, Instagram a little bit, but I think those others are more. So you can definitely check out like my content on YouTube. It's called Hello, it is Marta. And then my podcast is As Community Become Yourself 2.0. And there I share a lot about like mindset, self-belief, self-concept, all of those deeper things to confidence.
I love that answer. Thanks for sharing that. Brainwashing yourself for success. I gotta check out some of those videos and some of those podcast episodes. Because I
Oh,
could
thank
use a little
you.
brainwashing myself. I could brainwash myself into more success. I love that. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm
I
ready for it.
highly recommend it because we
That's
just
awesome.
start believe whatever it just have to go with emotion. So it's not about saying affirmation or saying whatever we would say. just as a words, is we have to start feeling like we are in this thing. It's kind of as visualization, I believe, before any presentation as well, or public speech or e-job interview, that we feel like, oh, it's gonna go well, how I would feel on this stage already. And it's the same, setting the tone for our day and our life. And I would go deeper into all the like neuroscience and how it physically change our brain, but I believe it's topic for another day, but it really works.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we could do a whole other session on that. That's awesome. Very cool. Thanks for
Yes,
sharing
we
that. That's
should,
so
Ty.
valuable.
We should.
We definitely can.
Oh,
Absolutely.
thank you. Yeah, I've been just so obsessed with this topic lately. So I feel like, yeah, we will definitely have a chat about setting the new one about it. And
Awesome.
what's your biggest like mindset tip?
Practice versus performance was a really, really big one for all aspects of my life. Another one that comes to mind is this might sound a little counterintuitive, but for me, this worked. Expecting things to be hard to some degree. So I'll explain what I mean by that. When I first started my business, I didn't really know how to do anything. And so when I mean how to do anything, I'd quit my corporate job at the time and I did the jump out of the airplane, figure out the parachute on the way down kind of thing, where I was just like, oh, I got this. I'd been kind of successful at that point in pretty much everything that I was doing. I was a great communicator, great relationships, social life. People would give me tasks at work and I'd, do them easily. I was like, I'm pretty good at stuff. I should be fine. I'll just quit my job, start the business. But I grossly underestimated the fact that I had absolutely zero knowledge on how to get clients in a coaching business. And so I went, I think, 4 or 5 months making $0 and basically spending the money that I had saved up as kind of like the cushion. To be fair, it was also summer and I was, having a lot of fun. And I was like, clients will just come to me. It's all good. But I wasn't actually doing any work really either. So I grossly underestimated the fact that it actually takes work as well. And then it got to a point where I did a coaching, or I did rather a strategy call with this mastermind program. And I was explaining all these challenges with my business. And I was like, I just don't think this is for me. Like, this is pretty hard. And the guy looked at me, and I'll never forget, he said, Ty, it's supposed to be hard. Like, if it was easy, everybody would do this and everybody would be successful. And that just completely shattered my world because I was like, oh, this isn't like a terrible thing that I suck at. This is just kind of how it is when you start. Now, it can be easy when you start, for sure, for some people. Marta, you absolutely crushed it right away. But for others, it's okay if it's hard. Whenever we start something new, we can kind of expect it to be hard. And then if it is hard, you think, okay, this is normal. This is how it's supposed to be. I'll just keep working. And then eventually it gets easier. But if you think it's going to be easy and then it's hard, you're like, I'm doing something super wrong here. What's going on? This shouldn't be happening. So I do think there's an element of you can have positive expectations and like have faith that everything's going to work out. But there's also like in the short term, like day by day, being like, this might not be easy and that's okay. So thinking that way actually helped me realize I wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong. I just needed to work harder and keep going and keep learning. And then eventually it did work out. So I probably would have quit if I thought that things weren't supposed to be hard. So that's something that actually really kept me going and allowed me to get to the point where I am today.
Oh, I love this advice, Ty. This is brilliant. And it's really eye-opening when we realize that, yeah, it's not supposed to be easy in this way that we expect it. Just like, of course, on affirmation side, I would say, yeah, let's like say that it's coming easy for us. And then it's like life is easy, work is easy, and everything. But in approach really to everyday work, we have to like also be ready to face this reality that like path to success is kind of full of those little failures that we just bring to be opportunities, and all of the mistakes on our path to be just learnings to make ourselves better, to improve what we do and how we do and how we gain those clients, especially if it's about like being business owners. Everything is now on like the business owner shoulders. So it's about or organic marketing or even paid campaigns and marketing and everything, or reaching out to people and actually proactively speaking with them and finding their challenges and how coach could help them in this case, and to understand really how it all goes. No, but I love the way you shared it, and I think it's extremely important. I'm so happy we recorded it, so I like have to listen to it again if I have any doubts about any kind of situation at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah, this was wonderful. Thank you for the question, Dominique. That was a great question. We got a lot of good stuff out of there. I'm excited to brainwash myself. So that's this is great.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thanks for Christy. Thanks for the event. Thank you for coming, Christy. You're very welcome. There are no other questions. Then we're going to wrap up here. Thank you again to everyone who came. Thank you to Marta. And we'll
thank
be posting
you.
this recording somewhere. Marta's YouTube will be one place. You can look for it there. And then maybe on LinkedIn somewhere as well. You can find it. But send Marta or I a message if you have questions about anything or if you're interested in exploring the potential of working together. Other than that, have a fantastic day and thank you again for joining.
Yeah, that's been wonderful. Thank you so much, Ty. And I appreciate everyone for joining as well and engaging, asking questions. That's wonderful. Can't wait to, yeah, for some kind of next live and sharing and connecting more. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, everyone, have a fantastic day. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.